My name is Boz Shills and I am age 12. My family moved to Guam when I was 2 months old and we have lived on Guam for 12 years. When I'm out here in my garden, I like to play basketball, I like to do tricks outside, I like to climb trees, I like to play capture the flag with my friends and have fun with my brother and sister. My dad and mom are both biologists and care for the environment. My mom has influenced me by taking me to places like cleanups and hikes and just being generally out there in protests and testimonies. And my dad, he makes me aware of the ocean and he really likes to make me interact with it. And it's just great to have them around to tell me all these knowledgeable things about what's around us. In our culture, there's a lot of fishing involved and sea work. Corals attract fish, so that is how fish come here because they see a good habitat here. And if there are no corals, the fish will stop coming here and that could ruin the culture.
Well, in recent years we've had extensive coral bleaching where a large percentage of some of the coral reefs have died and we're not sure if we'll be seeing recovery anytime soon. When we add dozens of different local environmental stressors, it's really difficult for our coral reefs to recover from the different impacts. One of our major environmental stressors on Guam is erosion of our land and the subsequent sedimentation on our coral reefs.
How corals live on this island is zooxanthellae goes into the coral and gives off food and oxygen, and then the coral protects it with its shelter. So they have a symbiotic relationship that keeps both alive.
So if you drive around the southern end of the island, we have these areas called badlands, which are heavily eroded sites where you see lots of red soil, where all the nutrients in the topsoil have washed away from poor land use practices. And when the heavy rains come, it washes that soil down into the rivers and eventually out to the ocean, where it can kill coral reefs or degrade them in two different ways. It can directly smother the corals, suffocating them, or it can block out sunlight, making it difficult for the little plant cells that live in the coral animal to undergo photosynthesis and provide energy for the coral animal.
And the zooxanthellae gets stressed because of the pollution, so they leave, and that makes the coral in need of help because their symbiotic relationship is ruined.
A watershed is a catchment area between the divides of mountains. It's an area where all the rainwater, the condensation, the dew collect into sort of bucket, and that water flows from the top of the mountains into the streams and tributaries, into the river, wetlands, and eventually makes its way out into the coral reefs, which are at the bottom of the watershed. And so when we think of ridge to reef, we're thinking about that watershed, how everything is connected from the very top of that ridge, flows through the land, and then out to the coral reefs at the bottom of that watershed. Everything that we do on the land has an effect on the quality of the water discharge and the health of the coral reefs at the bottom of the watershed. There was the Agate-Umatic Road about 29 years ago now, was torn down, rebuilt, and expanded. And the government agencies responsible for that road construction failed to implement an environmental safety plan that would protect adjacent ecosystems. So they left these large mounds of sediment uncovered for long periods of time, and when the heavy rains came, it flushed that sediment into the ocean and it killed large expanses of coral reefs very quickly. Perhaps the coral reefs could have recovered over time, but we also have other environmental stressors. Wildland arson fires, mostly caused by deer poachers that burn the hillsides, and it creates and expands those badland areas, contributing more to erosion.
The traditional causes of fire here, what's been guessed at would be for poaching. You know, clear, burn the land, and then the deer would be invited back in, basically, looking for those sweet new regrowth. I don't believe it's a lot of people doing that, but the impact is felt island-wide. You could have a burn today, a rain tomorrow, and the full effect of that fire will be felt. We might have a small case of uncontrolled control burns. So that's your backyard fire. That's the typical, I'm cleaning my backyard and I want to put all these leaves together and burn that down because it's clean. I'm cleaning my yard. There are moments when we have accidental escapes. You might have control of the element, the fact that you have fire in a tunky or surrounded by rocks, but you'll have no control over the wind. And so that's how we end up with escape fires.
Fire burns what keeps the soil together, which is plants, because their roots hold the soil together. So that's why it's a common thing to plant more trees on mountains.
We're doing a lot of actions to improve the terrestrial habitat in order to help improve the health of the reefs downstream. We typically plant in later in the year when it's raining, so the trees have a better chance of surviving. But about 3 weeks ago on this site, we had a very large burn. It didn't affect most of our older plantation. It did take out about 1,500 of our youngest trees. And so we wanted to come in and repair some of that damage, but also watching the burn pattern, try to change the vegetation so that the next time there's a burn come through here, hopefully we can slow it down and put in some different kind of plants that are not going to spread the fire as fast or as hot.
The invasive grasses all across the southern ridge, that leads for an extremely fast-moving fire. And in the north, there are more forest fragments still intact, so it moves a lot slower because our trees hold more moisture, therefore our fire isn't going to be moving as rapidly.
Mostly during the fire season, the forestry teams that fight these fires in cooperation with the Guam Fire Department, they're so busy literally just putting out fires that they haven't had the opportunity to go back in and try to put down some plants or seeds right after the burns. So rather than just being upset that the burn took out this vegetation and we know there's going to be an erosion problem, how soon can we get in after a burn to start treating that area so that there is some hope of holding that soil before the big rain pulses come. So we're trying to get our techniques down so that when this happens again, we know what we need to do, hopefully can do it more quickly to prevent some of the problems that we know come after these big wildfires come through.
There's a disconnect because we're not losing homes to wildfires. And so there's this lack of urgency in the response to trying to address and control the number of fires that we're having. I don't believe it's a sense of disregard, like we just don't care. It's just, oh, it's up there, and well, how's that fire in the ridge going to impact me here in the village?
Things like this is what destroys what we live on. If we don't start showing the kids now that it's bad, then they'll think, oh, it's okay to do this, or oh, we shouldn't do anything to help it, or oh, no, it's been destroyed. So we should act now and make the kids aware, because that's really what it starts in. When everybody from the other generations are gone, we're gonna be left.
Everyone can help reduce the fire threat on Guam by knowing that fire season, not a good time to burn. So that simple awareness that, hey, you know, we've got strong winds today, it's really, really hot outside, I'm gonna refrain from burning. No matter how big my tunky is or how small I plan the fire to be, I'm going to keep that an absolute no burn day.
If people could just not burn, it would be the most tremendous help to get these areas revegetated. Of course, they can always come out and plant with us. We really appreciate the jobs that they do for us. We could not do these plantations without our volunteers.
The people who don't care about the environment, I would ask them why they don't care or why they're doing what they're doing. And then I would also tell them why it's destructive, because some people might not care, but they also don't know that what they're doing wrong. Because there's a difference with not caring and not knowing. If you don't know, then you need to get educated. And if you don't care, then you need to start caring.